She's so eager to get on stage. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Piers Hanning, Director and CEO of TIFF. My distinct pleasure to welcome you to today's In Conversation with Isabelle Huppert. Just a few reminders before we start. Please put your phones on silent, and taking photos or recording video is not allowed at any point during the event, but we do encourage you to tweet afterwards using the TIFF hashtag TIFF16. Now, this In Conversation with is part of an ongoing series brought to you by TIFF's Adult Learning Team. And these initiatives provide audiences with opportunities to watch, talk, and learn about classic and contemporary cinema through in-depth on-stage conversation. And outside festival, of course, these conversations happen here in our home, TIFF Bell Lightbox. Now, Isabelle Huppert has been, and I'm going to embarrass her, she's been called the greatest actor presently working in cinema today. Not yet. She's appeared in well over 100 film and television productions since her first film in 1971. She's worked with some of the greatest filmmakers in the history of cinema, not just those from her native France, Bertrand Blier, Claude Chabrol, Jean-Luc Godard, Bertrand Tavernier, Maurice Pialat, Benoît Jacot, Diane Curis, Claire Denis, Mia Hansen-Løve, but also filmmakers from Austria, Hungary, Poland, Germany, Italy, Norway, the Ukraine, the US, Cambodia, and South Korea. Michael Haneke, Marta Mazzaros, Andrzej Wajda, Werner Schurter, Otto Preminger, Joseph Losey, Michael Cimino, David O. Russell, Rithi Penn, Hong Sang-soo, and too many others to mention. But she's also worked with many young and first-time directors and prides herself on having a nose for sniffing out future talents and has taken many risks in her screen roles. She's received numerous awards, most promising newcomer for The Lace Maker, the BAFTAs, many years ago, twice named Best Actress at the Cannes Film Festival for Violette Nozière and The Piano Teacher, twice Best Actress at the Venice Film Festival for Une affaire de femme and La Cérémonie, twice Best Actress at the European Film Awards, nominated 15 times for a César Award in France, and winning for La Cérémonie. She also stars in 3 films for screening at this year's festival: Paul Verhoeven's Elle, Mia Hansen-Løve's L'Avenir, Things to Come, and Bavo Defurne's Souvenir. Now, before we bring Isabelle out on stage, and she's so keen, we're going to screen a short clip reel of her career, courtesy of Unifrance Films. Isabelle Huppert. Thank you, Isabelle, for being here. I know you've got an incredibly hectic schedule. So you see a clip reel like this. It's extraordinary, the variety of what you have actually done as an actress. Tell me some of the thoughts that go through your mind when you actually look at a clip reel like this that embraces your entire career.
Wow, what a question. Well, I think it reminds me of all the good moments spent doing all these movies. I think it's very, I rarely see my films. I'd rather see others' films, and I rarely look back. Well, maybe I shouldn't say that, but I watch this and I say, woof. It doesn't seem so big to me, So I always take it as a miracle, actually, when people, either like my work or are able to notice the little nuance I try to bring up to most of my roles. I always take it as as a little miracle. So I watch this and I say, oh, okay, so the miracle works, and it's. But of course, it's the proof of all the amazing encounters I had in my life with all these amazing directors, because that's, I was lucky to meet all these people. Maybe they were lucky too, but actually I was lucky to meet them, and film after film I was able to really to experience what I cherish more when I do a film, and which is, the trust into a great director. That's the only good reason for me to do a film, and I believe in the director as the key piece to the ensemble. And I see Claude Chabrol and Denis and Haneke and Jean-Luc Godard and Maurice Pialat, and that I'm a little proud of it.
It's a pretty good career, isn't it? Did you set out to, the variety of roles, though, is really astonishing. Did you really set out early in your career to avoid being typecast as an actress?
I was never afraid that I was going to be typecasted, I have to say, because again, there is such a variety in what I did, and plus I never draw any category, a border or separation between drama and comedies. I believe that if you do a drama, you can be funny. Also, let's take even The Piano Teacher, which is not obvious, I admit. It's not the funniest comedy in the world, but still, yes, there are funny moments to it because we have this Austrian sense of humor. There is an Austrian sense of humor, and there is, yes, yeah. Well, you have Thomas Bernhard and you have Karl Kraus, for example, and I think Michael Haneke is in the line of those people. And if you do comedies, you have some dramatic moments. So I believe that, yes, I'm often asked also, if I prefer to do comedies or dramas. And for me, it doesn't really matter, I mean, whatever you do, it's always possible, yes, to put a bit of tragedy in comedy and a little bit of comedy in tragedy. So what I'm really, I mean, I keep repeating myself, but what I'm mostly after is just to work with people, and I mean, this is what I go through most of the time. This relationship I have with directors is something really amazing. It's an amazing type of relationship. It's something with desire and love, but it's friendship too. But it's none of that completely. It's a little bit of everything. It's a mutual and sometimes silent exchange through the camera language, because I do believe that cinema is a language, and it's a personal language. It's an individual language according to, regarding to whoever you work with, and I cherish that communication. It's also, for me, it's as to be an actress is something very individual and very collective. So that's very fulfilling also for me, because you can be alone and with people at the same time, which is really a dream for a life, I think. And I'm very talkative.
Which is good.
You have to stop me talking.
So I looked at a lot. I've seen many, many films over your career, starting with your first film, Believe It or Not, which I went back to my records, Faustina et la Belle Été, which was made in about 1972.
That's the exact proof you've seen my first film. Because usually people would come up with Going Places or The Lacemaker, but that was Faustina. It was sometimes people would miss me in that film because my role was before the credit. So, and that was it. So.
But it still was a role in cinema.
It was, yeah. Nina Companès was directing.
So I've seen many of the films, and I looked at a lot of films for this conversation, and I tried to sort of find one or two words to define you, because you can do that with other actors, and I found that very, very difficult to do. You're almost an enigma in a way. It's something that I think you bring this enigmatic quality to so many of the roles. And I'm just wondering if this is one of your greatest strengths as an actress.
I don't know, it's very difficult for me to define, you know, the way I act. All I know is that for me, I want to be as, I wouldn't say real, because I'm not sure movie is always about reality. I mean, well, I don't know if you can establish a separation between reality and truthfulness, for example, because a film is always a construction, you know, it's always, you know, a director's view, and but I try to be as close as possible to what I think is the truthfulness of a character. That's my only concern, actually, and I think you achieve that just being. It's all about, you know, about the present time. It's nothing that you can predict. That's why people keep asking me if I prepare roles, and I keep saying there is nothing to prepare. I mean, it's a lot of thinking. It's all about how this foreign person is going to grow within yourself until it becomes you, or you become her, or whatever it is, you know. I mean, this is this chemistry, you know. We have a French great philosopher who speaks about the paradox of the actor, you know, and that's a paradox. I mean, you are someone else, and someone else is you, and, you know, and you can't really tell what is the exact separation between you and the character. But that's my only concern, and it has a lot to do with the present time. It has nothing to do with preparation, but maybe only for the costumes, and that might be very technical and very side concern. But it is very, very important, because those are the first signs that you would give to an audience, you know, whether you're being dressed, and this is very concrete, at least. That's a concrete, let's say, preparation I can come up with, you know. But the rest, it's very difficult, you know, and some people would talk you a lot about the character, and some would not, you know. For instance, with Claude Chabrol, we would have very little conversations about the character, in fact, almost none, you know. He would say sometimes just a line that I would grab and that I would rely on for the whole shooting. Like, for instance, when we did Madame Bovary, I remember he said, because usually you think of Madame Bovary being a kind of inferior character or whatever, being negative. And he said, I think the problem of Madame Bovary is that she has a complex of superiority, meaning she believes more that she's more than she is, and not less, you know. And I don't know, that drove me all throughout the film. I don't really remember Michael Haneke talking to me about anything for the character. Only when he gave me the script, he told me, if you don't do it, I won't do it. That was enough to attract me. Enough, you know, because an actress is always, you know, like to be complimented. And I hardly read the script, I remember. I said, okay, it's enough for me to do. Then, on my way to the shoot, in the plane, I read the script and I thought, oh my God. But it was too late because the plane was already landing and I had to do it, you know. So that's how it goes, you know, most of the time. Not the one people would expect most of the time, but sometimes people would talk over and over about the role. I mean, everything is good for me, actually. I don't have any, you know, if someone wants to talk to me forever, it's okay. If he doesn't want, if there is a script, it's okay. If there is not a script, it's okay too. I mean, with Hong Sang-soo, which I cherish most, not most, but a lot, you know, this Korean director I've been working with, there was no script. He would give me the lines the day, not in Korean, at least, but that I couldn't do, but in English. Each morning we shoot the film. Just to say that cinema is such a versatile and extensible, is that a word, do you understand?
Yes.
You know, media, that it can go from the shooting of Heaven's Gate in 7 months to the shooting of in another country, this film I did with Hong Sang-soo, that we shot, believe it or not, I hardly dare saying it, in 9 days, you know. So, and then it's all about doing movies, it's always cinema, and that's what I really like most. It is to explore all this, you know, immense versatility, variety, not only in inspiration and in subjects, but just in doing the films, you know.
So it's completely instinctive, it sounds like to you. But it starts somewhere.
It is, and it's, yes, of course, it's a lot about instinct and intuition, and but of course I think. It's not that I don't think about what I do, you know. I do little thinking before, but it's something that grows within yourself, you know. It's something that, for instance, I'm going to start a movie next Monday. No, not this coming Monday, because this coming Monday I will be on stage in New York. This coming Tuesday, doing Phaedra, not the classical Phaedra, an assemblage of several texts by Phaedra, directed by a great Polish director, Krzysztof Walikowski, and we'll be doing that at BAM. But then the next Monday or the next Tuesday or whatever, I'll be starting a new film, and I think about it. It's growing. It's I just read the script once, and and that's enough. But it's like you take notes or whatever, you know. It's growing slowly and slowly. And then comes the moment when you shoot the film, and it's all about this present time that it implies so many, many little events, you know, mainly, of course, the mise en scène and the camera movements and the right distance of the camera, whether you have to express a certain feeling. And this is something, it's very organic, you know. This is also something the actor really reckons, you know, when the camera is at the right place, because of course you're not going to express the same feeling whether you have a close-up. Sometimes you would find an answer if the camera comes closer, and sometimes you would find a different answer if the camera is a more longer distance shot, you know. So it's a language, and it's a conversation like what we do now, in a way.
And do you enjoy doing films with more close-ups, films with more long shots, or again, this is something you don't really even think about?
I do. I like close-ups, actually. But sometimes you don't need close-ups. I mean, sometimes it's more about the body movements, and I think what I really experienced with Paul Verhoeven is the science of movement. I think mise en scène is really how you move an individual in relation to the environment. I like this story about Ingrid Bergman, you know. She didn't know exactly what Rossellini was expecting from her, and she was a bit at loss, you know, coming from a Hollywood movie into those small Italian movies. And then she asked him, what should I do? And he said, move so that I can show what is around you, which is the perfect definition of what mise en scène is, and how you put an individual in relation to, you know, what surrounds that individual in a film, you know. So, but I mean, that might sound very theoretical. It's just also something that you feel, you know. And that's also what I experienced doing Things to Come, you know, and also, you know, the film with Bavo, you know, Defurne, Souvenir. I mean, when you feel that the movement is just perfect, you know, and so the feeling follows, you know, the sensations follows, and the expressions are very easy to deliver when you feel that, you know, the movements is good, in fact.
Now we've gone through a list of some of the names of the directors you've worked with, I mean, some of the greatest names in the history of cinema. I'm just wondering what you think they find in you, because you've worked with such a diversity of them. English, French, you haven't just limited yourself to one culture. You're working exactly with Hong Sang-soo, you've worked with, I mean, I listed some of the names of the directors that you've worked with, Polish, Czech, or Hungarian. I'm just wondering what they find in you, or are you conscious of that, Isabelle, at all? You think about that?
Well, I think they're like me, first. They must be interested by, I don't know, my face. I mean, it's a nice feeling, you know, when a director wants to work with you, it means they like you. You know, Chabrol obviously likes me, you know, he likes the way I am, the way I move, the way I talk. I mean, that's a lot to do. Beyond this, I don't know. I don't know if sometimes I'm more interested when someone doesn't like me, than when someone does like me. You know, when it does like me, it sounds all normal to me. Then I say, why this one doesn't like me? Why doesn't he want to work with me? It shouldn't happen. Everybody should be willing to work with me. You know? So I'm trying to find, you know, why doesn't he want? And I'm saying that because it's so much about desire, you know, and it's a bit of a mystery. Obviously, some like me and some, I don't say don't like me, but they are not attracted by me, you know, they don't want to work with me. But those who want to work with me, actually, you should ask them. I don't know. It's really, I don't know, let's say, you know, it's no secret because Michael Cimino told that story many, many times, and I'm happy to retell that story, not only because Michael passed away some weeks ago, but just, to make him alive in this room tonight. And for instance, he said he was looking for his actress, for an actress in Heaven's Gate, and he was auditioning a lot of actresses. And then he walked down to, his office was not far from the Paris Theatre in New York, where they would screen a lot of French movies, and at the time Violette was being screened by Claude Chabrol. And he went into the cinema, he just took a little walk, to take some fresh air, walked into the cinema, stayed 5 minutes in the cinema, which I believe because Michael was, I don't think he had time to watch the whole films, and he described clearly the scene he saw, which was the scene when I was being arrested in the park. And he went up and he said, it's okay, I found my actress. I don't know why. I mean, yes, I can imagine why, but why? It just saw me and he said, that's the one I want, that's the, he matched, I believe, what he was expecting from that role, something maybe not too predictable. I'm running a prostitute house in the film, and I guess he didn't want someone who predictable for that kind of occupation, let's say, and I don't know. He maybe saw something between. Maybe I think that's for. I know how to be hard and sweet and hard at the same time. Most of the time, I know how to do that. Maybe that's what he saw because he needed a woman of a certain strength, and at the same time also something quite fragile and weak. And so, and I know that, for instance, Claude Chabrol. Let's say Claude Chabrol, he has this kind of humanistic look upon his characters and in his films, and he does not like superheroes. He just like normal people, and he never wanted, for sure, to idealize people. I mean, he is not a romantic director. Like very few of great directors are really romantic. So and I think he found the right level with me. He just think. To be able to portray a character without not too much and not just a good level, as every human being is, not more, not less, but not more, and that's I think he trusted me in this ability, and I trusted him in this, idea to show someone. Quite, I would. Nobody is normal. Everybody is normal, and nobody is normal. I would say, so. This ability to portray characters in let's say a certain normality in abnormal situations, and like most of people with extravagant behaviors, most of the time quite normal, but they are being drawn in abnormal situations, I don't know. It's just a thought. It's just a hypothesis, that's a difficult word that I can never say.
Hypothesis.
Hypothesis, that's a difficult word. Anyway, I don't know. It's hard for me to, answer this question.
So this is a perfect setup, actually, for a clip. We're going to show some clips.
Okay.
So Michael Cimino actually will come back. We're going to show a clip, though, from The Lacemaker and Coup de Torchon.
D'accord.
So I'll just set this up very quickly for the audience. So while Les Valseuses was really her breakout role in France, it was The Lacemaker that really led to her international recognition. And this film's a love story about two people from very different social classes, two youngsters, and the clip shows the early stages of their relationship. Now, the second clip is from Bertrand Tavernier's Coup de Torchon, and Isabelle worked on 3 films with Bertrand. And here Isabelle plays the role of a young woman having an affair with Philippe Noiret, who you don't see in the scene. And in this scene, Noiret's wife, played by Stéphane Audrin, married to Chabrol at one point, comes to confront her in the presence of her own brother, with whom Stéphane Audrin is actually having an affair. So if we could just show those 2 clips, please. Very complicated film. We can see them down here.
I can't see them?
No, we can see them.
Ah, you can.
Yeah, we don't have to look behind. about sweet and hard, and this, of course, is a perfect example. Two very, very different films.
Exactly, that I was thinking, exactly.
Yeah, and they're so, I mean, the flexibility, just the versatility. How difficult is it to, I mean, maybe you've answered these questions before just a little bit. How difficult is it to sort of move from one to the other? Is it completely, it's in you, both these sides, the softness and the hardness, and so it's it is the context of the film completely.
Of course, I mean, the Bertrand's movie is based on a Jim Thompson movie, you know, Population 2000 or whatever, 75 Souls, which is a very, very provocative and violent film, and the dialogues were just, you know, so funny and so. I was only saying dirty words, you know, in that film all throughout the film. And I was thinking when I was seeing these two excerpts that, you know, there is also a body language that follows, you know. I mean, one situation, you know, the body is much more kind of shy, and I mean, it's a whole ensemble, you know. I mean, I can't say it's difficult because it's not difficult, you know. It's just very, well, I guess, you know, it's easy for me to do. It's because it's an ensemble of the dialogue and the situation and the character. I mean, it's the least an actress can do, I would say, you know, whether you have to be shy or aggressive or very, very, you know, insolent, I don't know how to say that.
Insolent, yeah.
Insolent, okay. I mean, it has a lot to do with also imagination, you know. It's not more difficult than this, you know. Plus, it's not like I was jumping from one situation to the other, but even if I had, I would say, you know, it wouldn't cause me any difficulty, you know. It's also, you know, it's your body or your voice is like an instrument, and it's like you were asking a dancer if it's difficult for her to do the grand écart, and she would say no, you know, but it's the same for an actor, I guess, you know. I'm good at that, but I'm not good at doing the grand écart, you know, when you have to stretch your legs completely. I mean, some do, but some I cannot do. So it's, and of course, also the dialogues makes a very, very big difference, actually. When I read a script, apart from, you know, again, the personality of the director and the general context of the film, I think what really drags me more into the willing to do a film is the dialogue. Sometimes I just project myself in saying one line. I remember it's always better if you come with a true example, and Story of Women. There was this, I always wanted to do the film anyway, no matter what, you know. And but there was this line, I wanted to do the movie for this line, because at one point she comes to, she wants to visit her young lover, who was played by Niels Tavernier, Bertrand's young son, and she comes by, how do you explain that? Comment on dit une grue? A crane? No, a crane? It's in grue, oui. Okay, so she comes, and the line sounds very, very funny in French. She says, someone asks her, what do you want? Oh, he mistakes the reason why she comes, and she says, je viens pas pour la grue, je viens pour le grutier. It's difficult to explain, but it's very funny the way it sounds in French. Okay, I don't come for the crane. I come for the man who runs the crane. It's difficult, but it's the consonants of the line which is funny in French. Je viens pas pour la grue, je viens pour le grutier. Bon. And when I read the script, I thought, oh my God, I want to say this line, and it's like and it's like, you know, if you take Things to Come, for example, you know, the Mia Hansen film, you know, there is these lines at the end, you know, my husband left me, my mother died, my children went away, I've never been so free, you know, and that's a good line to say, you know. I say, wow, I want to make that film to say this line. So just to say that the dialogues are really essential, the way they, you know, reach the point, the way they, it's like arc, you know, when the arrow
hit the target.
Yeah.
The hairstyle and the clothes in Dentelier. I mean, was that your choice of hairstyle? Because it kind of sets the character.
It was my hair. It's always my hair, actually.
It sort of sets the whole role and the character right away. She's sort of almost hidden behind it. It's so different than, of course, the hairstyle in in Coup de Torchon.
Yes, I mean, but you're perfectly right. The hair is very, very important. Plus, the hair most of the time is your landmark, you know. I mean, my red hair is, and I remember when we did, comment s'appelle? I forgot the title in French. Rien ne va plus. It's a comedy I did with Rien ne va plus. I don't know about the English title. maybe the 5th film I did with Claude Chabrol. It was very funny because there was a whole gimmick with my hair. The first time I was appearing, I had a black hair with a wig, and so for the whole film, the black hair was supposed to be my real hair, and all of a sudden I had my real hair, which was supposed to be my fake hair, you know. So it was just a whole gimmick about, you know, what you are not, and the mask, and you know, your own identity and all that. So yes, just to say that the hair is really important, the haircut, everything is important actually. Of course, I mean, obviously I'm not dressed the same way as in the lace maker with this little white shirt, and is in coup de torchon in clean slate, you know. So everything is matters a lot, and that's part of the amusement, you know, to build up a character and to go, you know, in different ways with your hair, with your costumes, with everything, because that's the key also, of course.
Michael Fassbender was here a couple of days ago doing an on-stage interview, and he was really interesting. He talked about how he started with, to shape a performance, he started with the shoes. The shoes somehow for him actually...
Of course, he's right. But it's more true for a woman, because very rarely a man wears high heels. I mean, it happens, but it's more rare. So, and it makes a big difference. I think it was Chantal Akerman who first came up, you know, you all know, I mean, I hope you know Chantal Akerman. And Chantal, I remember once she said, she was asked, where do you find this idea? And she said, in my shoes. which I think is quite relevant, whatever it is, very true. For a role, you know, you find, I mean, I always thought the piano teacher would never be the same if I was wearing high heels. She was really a flat heel woman, you know, and it's completely different. I was doing this other role, for example, with Olivier Dahan, you know, who did La Môme, and what was the title of the film? Une vie, comment ça s'appelait? La vie promise, thank you. I'm sorry, Promised Life, and I was walking with high heels, and I was kind of stumbling on my heels, you know, being just uncertain of my life, and the high heels made it all, you know. That's why, this is why I was talking about the body language, you know. And obviously you don't have the same body language with flat heels as you have with high heels, or so it's very, very important. But I'm surprised that a man can say the same thing.
Now, when you started out as a young actress, did you have any role models, any actors that you really admired? That you
No. I mean, the answer is no. I don't even let you finish your line. I say no. I say no because, first of all, I saw very few films before starting being an actress. I was raised in the... I wasn't raised in the center of Paris. I was raised out of Paris. And in that time, you know, there was less television than now, as you know. There was no DVDs or whatever. So I very rarely went to see a film on the big screen myself. Some, but not so many. I mean, I see films. I was not completely coming from another planet, but very few. And I had big lacks, you know, I still have, by the way, which is good because I still have so many films to discover. But I never had a model, you know. No, I always immediately thought that, you know, being an actress was just about how to cultivate your difference rather than your... and I thought I was so far away from any models, you know, so I'd better find my own way. And I was very lucky to find roles at the very beginning which were more on the interiority, like the lace maker, for example, or even a role that I did before that was very important for me, about Aloïse. She's a schizophrenic Swiss painter belonging to this painting movement, aesthetic movement called l'art brut. And Delphine Seyrig was playing Aloïse as an adult, and I was playing Aloïse as a young girl. And Liliane de Kermadec was directing this film, and I loved the role. But just to say that I was lucky enough to find this kind of substantial roles instead of non-substantial roles that you would maybe sometimes find more easily at this age, you know. So it was very easy for me to start with this kind of existential view of what it could be for me to be an actress, you know. Because I'm not saying that I was not pretty or whatever, I was sweet, but it was more inner roles, you know, with interiority.
Now, you just evoked Michael Cimino, and I'd like to move to a clip of his. Yeah, I think exactly. We should show this film. It's a very short clip from a very long film, and Isabelle plays a prostitute, torn between two men set against the backdrop of the Johnson County Wars and the immigrants in 19th century America. So this is a very short clip from Heaven's Gate. Both these films were made within the studio system, and Heaven's Gate, of course, being famously blamed for the demise of one of those studios, United Artists. And I'm just wondering how different it was for you to move from French films into the American studio system.
I'm not sure Premier's film was what you can call a studio film. I mean, I don't want to, but we shot the film in France, and it was something so unusual, you know. Robert Mitchum was still first attached to the film. And I had a big fight with Otto Preminger because he wasn't really able to do the film, and then he was replaced by Peter O'Toole. I mean, that was, I mean, the whole thing was completely wild. The script was very wild too, you know, very improbable, I can say, you know, and the whole adventure was completely mad, you know, and so that's the souvenir I have. It was wonderful for me to do, but it was a much less, let's say, structured movie than Heaven's Gate was, you know, in a way. But when I did the Preminger film Rosebud, I mean, I hardly done anything before, and so I was looking at everything in such surprise because everything was so extravagant, you know. Preminger was, and the firing of Robert Mitchum, and then being replaced by Peter O'Toole, and the whole thing was, wow. Well, wow! It was. I felt like I was watching a movie myself. You know, a big movie with.
This is Hollywood. This is big business,
well,
right?
it wasn't really Hollywood because also we didn't shoot the movie here. You know, we shot the movie on the Riviera and then in Corsica, and so I didn't. I wasn't my country. You know, and it makes a huge difference. I mean, the first big, whatever you can call it, Hollywood. I'm not so sure it was a Hollywood film, but was Heaven's Gate. That was a real American film with so many people, so much time, so much inspiration too, because I think the movie is a real masterpiece. So that was a really big adventure. Yes, in fact. And I was there for 2 months, and I happened to stay 7 months. And when I see that, you know, I can see how a great artist Michael was, and the music just brings my tears to my eyes because the music was so inspiring, so beautiful. I mean, there is such poetry to the film, you know. I mean, the film is like a huge $60 million poem, which is a bit too much, of course, to write a poem, but that's what it is, actually. It's a poem, you know, and yeah, there is such poetry, such inspiration, such melancholy, such vision, because Michael was a visionaire, you know, this concentric, you know, all these movements in the film, you know, the dance from the beginning in Harvard, and then the dance from the skating scene, and then the dance from the battle. I mean, to see the world like endless circles, you know. That I mean, it's for me, it's a immense inspiration. It's between the music, the movement, the rhythm, the painting, the belief. I mean, Michael's great inspiration was, comment dire, model, a reference was John Ford. And so there was this, cult for the spirituality, for the landscapes that you can find in places like Montana. Also it was wonderful for me because I felt like, it was also, let's say, a Western, whether it was an anti-Western or whatever it was also a Western in the sense that I was riding horses, shooting the guns, and it was like a summer camp actually. I mean, every day we would know how to dance the valse and driving the carriage. It's me who drive the carriage. I mean, nobody was sitting under my feet to do it, So I had to learn how to do this, and the whole thing was absolutely amazing, and we all felt that we were doing something exceptional, and I think we did actually, no matter what was the future for the film. I think it was exceptional.
So you never felt lost within the size of this in terms of an actor? You felt the intimacy of the scenes between you and Christopherson and Christopher Walken still at the core of the film.
Absolutely.
In many respects.
I never felt lost, although there was, I wouldn't say thousands of people, but certainly hundreds of people. I never got lost because I think Michael had this amazing ability to navigate between the extremely large and the extremely intimate and small, and so all those very intimate scenes, as you put it, between the three actors, and the actors were, I mean, we really work on that, and he really loved the actors, and I never felt lost, I mean, I was, yeah. So that's the proof. Also, Michael has a very great relationship to actors. I mean, we always felt being part of something huge and exceptional. So, no. And I don't know. Well, I wasn't ready for that because, again, I was there for 2 months and I found myself staying 7 months. So, but I felt good. I wouldn't say at home. I wasn't really at home, but it's just an extraordinary memory in my life as an actress, I have to say.
Was it shocking to you that the film failed in such a dramatic way?
In such a dramatic way, it was certainly shocking because it was nothing that you could have predicted, and it really was shocking because it was immediate. It's not like like I wouldn't say most of the time, but in certain cases, some people would love the film, some other people wouldn't love the film, but you would find an in between. There was no way we could get away with it, I mean, for the very, very first screening in New York, it was such an unbelievable, it was a disaster. I mean, people would, it was all there. We knew it was there, And then it went, as we say in France, it went to Caribe dans Silla, which was like this, because we went to Toronto. And that was, by the way, in Toronto that I remember from New York, we flew Michael, Christopher Walken, and Chris Christopherson and myself to Toronto, where the film was going to be premiered in Toronto as well. I think that it was not, it didn't go any better. It was, you remember?
The University Theatre?
Yeah, okay, so it was. And the next day we were going to fly to Los Angeles to go on with this tour, which turned out to be not very nice tour, by the way, because New York wasn't good, Toronto wasn't good. So during the night, Michael called us. He rarely had, consciousness of what was the day, what was the night. So no matter what time it was, like he would call like maybe 3 o'clock in the morning, and then he told, we're gonna go to LA, but I'm gonna cancel the next screening in LA. I'm gonna cancel the premiere in LA. I'm gonna recut the whole film myself, and we canceled everything. And that was so. And so that was the end of the first part. He did the second cutting of the film. That version was shown in Cannes. It didn't really go any better in the sense that, the movie didn't get anything, and it didn't do any better in France as well, I have to say. I mean, so, no, it was shocking. It was shocking because I think the failure is proportionally, comment on dit, inversement proportionnel.
In direct inverse, yeah.
Okay. To the beauty of the film, I would say. So that this, for me, it was almost like an erreur judiciaire, People did a mistake because they think I think the movie was too harsh for America in a way. You know, it was a very harsh criticism to a certain idea people had about America. It was a really anti-conquête de l'Ouest, you know, and in a form that was unacceptable also at the time because again it was so poetic, so the narrative line was so sometimes erratic, and it was difficult to accept.
And so contemporary now, actually. When you see it, it's all about anti-immigrants.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I know. It was very political in the, I keep saying in French, dans la forme et dans le fond. Because the form was very difficult to accept, and the fond, the substance of the film was very difficult to accept too. So the whole together, it was too much.
Did this kill your appetite for studio films or for more American films, or did you just not get offered those roles? Were you interested in working in the American system at all?
Oh, I'm quite happy with what I did in America, actually, because I did, 5 films in America, and all of which are, I mean, it's exactly the same line I follow in my country, in France, or in Europe, let's say, which is really a director's line,
Mm-hmm.
So having worked with people like Michael and Hal Hartley, David O. Russell, and Curtis Hanson,
Yeah.
I think I can be proud with that list. I mean, these are really good, wonderful directors. And so I was, even though I worked with few American directors, I'm really happy with those I've been working with, actually.
Yeah, they're all very well chosen. Many of those films actually came to the festival as well. So let's move to, we're going to race through Isabelle's career very, very quickly. I want to show 2 films, or clips from 2 films, White Material and Abus de Faiblesse, Abuse of Weakness. The first clip is from Claire Denis' White Material, where Isabelle plays a plantation owner whose life is turned upside down when she is caught up in a civil war. And in Abuse of Weakness, she plays a filmmaker who has a stroke and develops a relationship with a charismatic con artist. These clips are both about films where women lose control. I'm just wondering, how different is it to actually work with a woman filmmaker? You've worked with many of them over your career, and it's a little bit of a cliched question, but I'm just interested. Are there any working differences at all? Differences in terms of the way you talk to your director, even the material itself? Do you notice that at all, Isabelle?
It's a very difficult question to answer. I think that there must be differences. I mean, obvious differences that there are between a man and a woman, as there are differences between a man and a woman and a woman. I mean, you know, I think there are differences, but I think that in the middle of those differences there is this media, the cinema, which is which is something that doesn't take the differences. You know, the cinema is beyond that, beyond the differences, you know, I would say. You know, I always, you know, there was this great writer, you know, Nathalie Sarraute, great novelist of the Nouveau Roman and whatsoever in France, and I was very close to her, and she kept saying she hated being categorized as a woman writer, you know, she hated that. She said there is no feminine literature as well as there is no male literature, and it's very difficult to, and in fact, yes, there are differences, but nothing that can be really, you know, established as major differences. And of course, you don't have probably the same relationship you would have with a man and a woman. And I'm not so sure, you know, I mean, because it's, again, a director, whether he's a man or a woman, is a certain position in the making of the film. At a certain point, it doesn't make any difference, I would say. So I think it's hard to tell for me to really answer that question. I don't have the answer for that.
It's an issue I've grappled with a lot when I actually look at films directed by women. And for me, there's some of them, again, it's very difficult to generalize. I think there's this kind of challenging of conventional narrative. The films seem to be freer, lighter. I mean, when you look at Claire Denis' work, when you look at Mia Hansen-Løve's work, it's airier, it's less narratively controlled. And it's interesting that both of these clips, of course, deal with women who are losing control. Yeah. It's almost as if they want to free themselves from the convention of narrative cinema, which is, of course, a male-dominated cinema, male-dominated way of looking at the world.
That could be very true, and that might be the answer I wasn't able to give, Pierce. That's absolutely true. I think, no, it's true. I do believe that the material that women come up with is most of the time less conventional, as you said, more daring, for that there would be a difference. Not in the way of doing it, but of course, because the material is different, then of course the way of doing it follows and is different. But the differences would depart from that. So it would more depart, and so maybe because the woman came after the men, because, you know, I mean, obviously you had more men doing movies than women, and so they immediately, instead of following certain more classical patterns in doing films, so they would immediately choose their own ways and be more daring and be more inventive, and that's of course the living proof of that. You know, I mean, those are two major women directors. You know, obviously, you know, I mean, Claire Denis is just, you know, she really a huge talent, and so is Catherine in a completely different way, and. But the differences would be more to be put on this account, you know. I mean, the differences of subject matters and inspirations, that's for sure, yeah. Have
you ever wanted to step behind the camera and become a director?
Not really. Maybe if I would do it, I would more do it out of curiosity, because I'm very, very curious in general, you know. I like to look behind the door. When I go to someone's apartment, I like to explore all the rooms. I'm very, very curious. Don't invite me to your apartment. Don't invite me. I'm so curious. I want to know how people live, you know. So I feel very frustrated when people invite me. I stay in the sitting room. I try to sneak in. Okay. So, what was I going to say? So yes, out of curiosity, I would be interested, you know, finding out what is behind my own door, for example, you know, and things like this. Out of necessity, I'm not so sure, because it requires such an energy. It's une épreuve endurance. I like that word in French. I don't know. Can somebody say it for me in English? Well, endurance, okay, it's easy. It's always the same word. Insolent, endurance, it's nice. We have so much in common, actually. And but it is an épreuve de whatever it is. Oh, it needs so much bravery, so much passions also. I mean, I'm so fulfilled as being an actress, you know. I need passions too, but it's not the same kind of passions. I'm just sit in my chair and act whenever I'm asked to act, you know, when you know, a lot of people who would come to set, you know, they all say, oh, it's so much waiting, but it's a very special and specific kind of waiting, actually, which is very fulfilling and very relaxing, and so I like that. But I'm not sure I would be brave enough to be a director, actually. Yes, it requires such energy, and I mean, it might be even more difficult for women because I'm sorry to go to be unpolitically correct, but being a woman, you have several fields to, you know. So if you work as a director, you still have to take care of the children and be you know, more than a man, I have to say. I know I'm a man. No, I'm not a man. It's my unconscious who talks.
So before we get to Q&A with you guys, I'd like to show clips from the 3 films that Isabelle is in during this festival, which is quite extraordinary. She has 3 films here. L'Avenir, Things to Come, yeah, Hansen-Løves film, Souvenir, which we just put on screen a few minutes ago, and Elle. The first clip is from Hansen-Løves L'Avenir, where she plays the role of a woman who has recently separated from her husband. In Souvenir, she plays a factory worker hiding her past who reluctantly becomes involved with a younger man. And in Elle, the sensation of the Cannes Festival this year, she famously plays a rape victim who reacts in a very surprising way. Maybe one question for me before we get to you guys. How was, I don't know what words to use, because I used the word challenging earlier with you on stage, and I know it's a word that you don't enjoy. How difficult was it, the role that you played in Elle?
In Elle, well, I didn't see the difficulties, so that's what made the whole thing very easy, you know. I didn't see how transgressive maybe the role could be or how disturbing the story could be. I really didn't see the problem, you know. And so that's what probably helped me doing it, you know. Otherwise, if I had seen, you know, too many complexity, I mean, there are complexity. I mean, there are only complexities in the role. But there was nothing that really disturbed me, you know, as, you know, I read the novel first, and I like the novel, I like the character, I like the story, I like the, it's an imaginary story of someone who doesn't want to be a victim, and she wants to take her own control upon something that happens to her. That's what it is about. And so I thought, well, it's a good role, it's a good story, and let's go for it, you know. And then Paul Verhoeven went in, and I thought, well, that's the best, you know, it's the best director to work on that. And I think because I didn't see the difficulties, that's again the best way to take the story just as it goes, and with, I don't know how to put it, because I mean, again, for me the role is so complex and the story is so complex itself, and it's so deep, it's so many things together. But it was almost like I thought the character was experiencing something that she doesn't have any preconceived idea of before doing what she does, you know. I mean, okay, she gets raped. Certainly she doesn't know that 5 minutes later she's going to order sushi, you know, which is already a strange things, how to react, you know. But then it's the occasion for her, instead of taking the things, you know, as something that is going to destroy her, she takes control of that thing. And in the end, of course, she does do something out of it. I mean, but it's not the revenge behavior, or it's not the revenge film as you would expect. You know, it's certainly not a James Bondish girl. You know, this happens to her. And I felt that the space that she explored in that film is really interesting, somewhere between being a victim and an avenger. You know, and it's an interesting way also to step into a woman's life, you know, at this moment, somewhere between. I mean, okay, she's a woman of power, and she does control certain situations in her life. But she's not only that, you know. She's fearless, that's for sure. She lives in this house alone. But she's also everything that comes up in the film can't be taken as explanations, but as, again, hypotheses, you know, the past. She has so many situations that she has to face in her life, you know, her past, her mother, the son, and everything. And the whole thing also, what made the whole thing really worthwhile doing is this huge irony that runs through the film, which it's not cynism, you know, and that's really interesting, and that's what I really like about Verhoeven's manner. So it's very funny. I wouldn't say most of the time, but very often there is a huge sense of irony that managed to keep a certain distance with the story. But it's also very, very complex, and it makes you think all the time, you know, and it's never cynical. It's beyond that, you know. There is a caring for every character. There is a caring for what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a man, what family ties mean, what transmission mean, how the violence can jump a generation, what it means to have the burden of a certain ascendance. I think the movie was, I immediately felt that the story was carrying all these multiple aspects to it. And so I was not narrow-minded or seeing, oh my God, what. No, I thought it was much more than this, you know. So it made it possible for me to do.
Perfect summation of the film. Let's go to you guys and questions. There should be microphones coming around. So could we have a microphone? Maybe start over here. Where's the mic? Sure, right up here.
We have a Q&A session with director Paul Verhoeven after screening of the movie Elle. Something interesting he says about how you contributed, you changed the script, added to the script. Is it important for you to be able to be in that position of influencing the outcome of the project? Just to give your best performance, is this critical as well? To be trusted in that way as well?
Well, I think Paul gave me more than I did in reality. I think what he meant is that, because he said that also to someone, or I heard him saying that I didn't change anything to the script. I mean, the script was just perfect and the dialogues were good, and so I really didn't change anything to it. But what happened is that, from what he says, you know, he's a man, I'm a woman, and I think it's true to say that he never said a word to me, as I said previously in our conversation, you know. He let me, because he was interested and curious on about how I was going to, you know, take the story where it goes, because he completely trusted me, not only as an actress, I would say, or he would say, just as a woman, you know. He said, she probably knows better than I do, so I just let her do, you know. So that's probably the reason why he never said me a thing, or he never interfered in what I was doing, never. So it gave me a lot of confidence also, because I was, you know, I was controlling my situation. He was doing the mise en scène, but I was completely responsible for what I did. You know, he never objected what I did. He never said, no, a little bit of more this, less that. No, I was completely free. It was my territory, and I took it. That was nice.
Next question, please.
Good afternoon, Isabelle. And I got a question that your characters from the two movies that I just saw, called The Story of Woman and Madame Bovary, was not a real true story, I believe. It was very intense, and the character, imagining behind her background, her story life. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's true. The Story of Woman is based on a true case. You know, she was the last woman to be head cut, guillotined at the end of the war well, even as I mean, there was no military woman. I mean, normal, I mean, a woman, you know, to be head cut after the war, you know, and because she was committing abortions, you know, and so Chabrol liked to say she was guillotined for something which is now in France reimbursed by Social Security. Meanwhile, the French were, and the German and the French who guillotined her were sending people to the camps. So it's not that she's a nice character because she does it for money. She's very cynical, her, by the way. She is cynical. She's cheating on her husband. She has all the defense in the world, not to the point to cut her head because she was committing abortions and trying to help women. So that's exactly the kind of character Chabrol would love, you know, because she was made. It's always very political, you know, the way Chabrol shows a woman like this. I mean, the situation is harsh. It's not her who is harsh, you know. The situation is like in the ceremony, you know. I mean, of course, they turn out to be murderers, but it's the situation around them which is, you know, difficult.
The environment, exactly.
Yeah, the environment. Yeah.
Question down here?
Yes.
Does it work? Yeah. Thank you so much for being so generous with us tonight. It was a real pleasure. And I've been dying of curiosity to ask you this question for many years. How was it like for you to work with Werner Schröder?
Oh, I'm really glad that you come up with Werner. I mean, unfortunately tonight we talked about too many people who are not here anymore, but you know, they're still there in a way, especially in a place like Toronto where there's such dedication to movies. But Werner was, he was a poet, that's for sure. He was an extraordinary man. You couldn't find two more different people between him and me, and he loved me completely as much as I loved him completely. And from the very beginning, I mean, it would have been a much longer time collaboration because we were going to do another film. He wanted to do a movie with me about the King of Prusse, the one who looked like a man, you know, Frédéric de Prusse, you know, King of Germany.
Frederick of Prussia.
Prussia, yeah.
Yes.
Prussia, okay, that's a good word for me. Prussia, and he was extraordinary. He was, of course. I mean, Malina for me is based on a book by Ingeborg Bachmann, great Austrian poet and philosopher, and the souvenir of the shooting of Malina is just a joy for me. It was a blessed time. It was a blessed time with someone who liked who took life. It might, I don't know. He took life as the best way he could. He was really extraordinary. And then we did this other film together called Deux that I did with Bulogier, and he was completely extravagant. He came from the opera. He was also, but he was never theatrical in his. I mean, he was a great filmmaker. Even though he was Baroque, and the music was very important in most of his films. But he had such visions, and all his films are just amazing. He's really a major filmmaker for me, Werner Schroeter. Yeah, thank you for talking about Werner tonight. Mm-hmm. That's for sure.
Is this where the mic is next? Please go ahead.
Hello, Isabelle. Obviously, you appear on screen and also on stage.
That's right.
Could you talk about what is the difference for you working in theater and in film, and what do you prefer about theater and film?
I would say it is completely different, but because it is so different, I like to say it's not. I don't like to make any differences between, for me, being an actress on stage, and of course, I mean, the situation on stage is nothing to do with. It's completely arbitrary, time-wise, space-wise. I mean, it's a completely strange situation being on a stage. But having said that, I like also to say that for me, there was no difference as an actress, because I like to experiment the stage as a total space of freedom, and this is what I do. No matter what I play, even if I play a classic, or I like for me to be as free as possible and not to draw barriers or whatever. I think for me, theater is always to go against convention. There is no theater worthwhile unless you go against convention, because it is convention by definition. So all you have to do when you do stage work is to go against convention. And I was very also, I feel very privileged. Also a little bit responsible for it, because I really went for those people. But to have worked with such amazing people like Bob Wilson or Peter Zadek, who is a great German stage director, and very soon, next week, Tuesday, I'd better go and learn my lines, by the way, brush up my lines, because I did it in Paris many weeks, and then I just did it in London at the Barbican. I'm doing Phaedra, which is not Phaedra, it's Phaedras with an S. It's a triptych work, kind of montage, assemblage of several texts around the figure of Phaedra, including Sarah Kane's Phaedra's Love, and I did previously 448 Psychosis. I did it in New York when I did it, and at BAM already, and I did it in Montreal, in a theater in Montreal. Anyway, so this is a different play by Sarah Kane, and there is a text by Sarah Kane, there is a text by Lebanese-Canadian writer Wajdi Mouahad, and there is a text by Coetzee, the great South African writer, and it's all, montage of text around Phaedra. So that's what I shall be doing in next week at BAM, and this is my second work with Christoph Walikowski. I did Streetcar with Christoph already, but just to say that those adventures are completely unconventional with those people that I had with people like this. But I also did some English speaking, so that's different. When it's English speaking on stage, it's a bit more difficult for me. I did The Maids in New York with Kate Blanchett. Thank you. And but theater is it's a different adventure, because it's a lot more demanding. That's for sure. I wouldn't do stage work all throughout the year, because it's a bit nervously it's more demanding. But so for me to go with a metaphor, doing movie would be a nice ride, and doing stage work would be climbing a big mountain. But the landscape worthwhile.
Isabelle, thank you for being with us,
Welcome.
sharing your memories from your remarkable career. It's really been terrific.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Piers.
Thank you.
It was lovely. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You were fantastic.
Bye.